political leader of the NTA, Mr. Gary Griffith.
So, Mr. Griffith, we wanted to talk about. I want you to delve into because you did an interview on the Observer, and then I guess people were kind of. I'm not going to say people were spinning it, so to speak, and
Yes.
the NTA issued a press release. So let's hear from you directly from you. What is the situation with respect to what we can say coalition as far as the NTA is concerned?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the name NTA, it is about an alliance. So nothing has changed. The reason why we send that release was because, many times in Trinidad and Tobago, people try to put one and one together and get five and six, and they just come up with wild perceptions with absolutely no justification. Nothing has changed as it pertains to the National Transformation Alliance. I am somebody that's a realist. Being in the military, if it is that I am going into an operation or mission, I have to be practical. I have to ascertain where it is that you're going to be successful or not, and what you intend to do to be successful. The reason why you form a political party is to be in government. Being very practical, I have heard it for so many decades of this perception of a third party winning alone. It is impossible. So to the 100, when it is, we have 50,000, 100, 150,000 supporters of the NTA. Because of our situation in our constitution, we will always be the pendulum that can decide government or become part of government, but we will never have the numbers to be in government alone. Having said that, it is a fact, however, that if that third party is discarded or ignored, it allows another party to get more seats, and that being the PNM. That happened in 1981 when the ONR, there was this perception the ONR could go alone. They got 91,000 votes. PNM got more seats because of that. In 1991, the NAR, of which Kamala Persad-Bissessar was a part of, they decided to go alone as that third party. They got 127,000 votes. PNM got more seats because of that. In 2007, 16 years later, the Congress of the People was formed. They got 147,000 votes. It allowed the PNM to get 25 seats to 16. So it shows that anytime there's a third party that decides to go on their own, what it does is actually allow PNM to get more seats. When that third party forms a strategic alliance, accommodation, partnership, whatever you call it, with the main opposition party to the PNM, that being the ULF and now the UNC, the PNM is annihilated. That is what happened in 1986 and in 2010. What we are saying is that nothing has changed. We intend to continue along that line. And we intend to get into government because we are fully aware that what the NTA will bring, it is similar to what you'd have seen in the local government election, 190,000 votes to 130,000. That's a 60,000 vote difference. It means for every 5 persons who voted in the local government election, 3 voted for either the NTA or the UNC, and 2 voted for the PNM. That is bad licks. And if you put that now into the equation of general election, with a 30% voter turnout in local government, a 60% voter turnout in general, when you multiply both parties, the numbers, you're going to get about 120,000 difference, which is almost identical to what happened in 2010. So it is there to be seen. I can't speak on behalf of other political parties. They need to decide whether they intend to be part of the alliance or the accommodation. But as I said, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. You form a strategic alliance, you get into government. You don't, and you decide to go alone, you will get in opposition. And again, there would always be persons on either side of the fence, even in the NTA. There would always be 1 or 2 persons, but that sometimes they will put their ego, they will put their own personal view of bitterness for everybody, every other political party, because you always feel like your party is the most perfect party in the world. No political party is perfect. And by doing that, there may be persons concerned by forming some such type of a strategic alliance. But as I said, the reason you form a political party is to win, is to get into government. We are not here as an activist group and trying to sing Kumbaya and be righteous. We will make mistakes. And I think finally that is the main thing of the alliance. Forming a strategic alliance among political parties allows checks and balances to take place that probably would not take place if you have one political party running government.
Now, Mr. Griffith, does that mean to say that there is no breakup, so to speak, between the NTA and the UNC?
Well, definitely not on my side. I don't know why people are coming up with that perception. I mean, obviously, there would have been much more communication, dialogue, joint meetings because we were in an election campaign during the local government election. That is not, there's no election at this time. So both political parties will probably be putting focus on their own business, seeing about getting their own house in order, which is the right thing to do. Try to build your base, establish your base, work, communicate with other parties, try to put your election machinery in place, start looking for possible candidates. And the same, I know there's this concern about the NTA putting out the request for 41 candidates. The UNC did the same thing just a month ago, and it was not a concern, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is not to say that all the UNC and the NTA will all go up for 41 seats. If that is the case, then if I'm a gambling man, I will put a lot of money on the PNM to win 25-16 again, because that is exactly what will happen if it is that egos, arrogance, personalities are not put aside, and you go with both parties going up with 41 seats. Granted, at the UNC, they have many more supporters than the NTA, but the fact of the matter is that if the NTA goes up in the same seat that the UNC goes up in, that will go up, and it will ensure that the PNM will win. In fact, when you look at 2007, if, for example, let us put the NTA and try to undermine the NTA as much as you can. So even though the COP had 147,000 votes, cut that in half. In fact, cut that in four. And even if you give the NTA 41,000 votes, you divide that by 41, that is 1,000 votes per constituency. You take 1,000 votes of a third party going into Sawa, Barataria, Shogunas West, and Maruga. The PNM will win those seats, which is similar to what happened in 2007, 25-16. So I have no intention to go into this to allow PNM to get more seats. The intention of this is for us to be in government or part of government to transform Trinidad and Tobago. But again, before we do that, we need to make sure we have a layout of possible candidates in all 41. And then the time would come, hopefully, good sense would prevail, that the political leadership, the hierarchy of the political parties will come together and decide which candidate and which political party will go up for which specific seat among the 41.
Now, Mr. Griffith, there was a statement made by Mr. Jack Warner with respect to that he sees that, I'm paraphrasing here, that the current people under Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, he is saying that some of them need to change in order for the UNC to win the next election. What is your take on that?
Well, at this time, I will say it's not my business. I will be really out of place to try to point fingers and target the shortcomings of our political ally, which is what I still see the UNC as. Obviously, we've heard a lot of talk about that, and maybe because of the option of a third party, it would allow many of those people who may slightly be disenchanted with the UNC to feel that there is room in the NTA, and then still now allow the both parties to work together, combine their votes to ensure that we win those marginal seats. So I think it will be, do not want to get into the nitty-gritty to try to target, pinpoint shortcomings or personalities of our political ally. No political party is perfect. You'll definitely get persons that will raise eyebrows throughout the board. There's no such thing as a perfect political party. What we need to do is to ascertain and analyze what are the shortcomings of the party, of individuals. There'll be specific parties, like, for example, the NTA. We may have better quality persons to deal with matters such as national security, sport, youth affairs, culture. The UNC may very well have persons to deal more as it pertains to party mobilization, other ministries such as public utilities, works, transports, and so forth. And that is where we speak about the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, bringing everybody together. So, as I said, the UNC may not be a perfect party. I don't expect them to be, likewise with the NTA. But I think it'll be inappropriate for me to come point blank and to pinpoint individuals and speak about their shortcomings. One of the things I do have a concern about, and that will go on both sides of the fence, NTA as well, are individuals who do not see the bigger picture. They would prefer to be big fish in small pond. They have this perception that if the NTA joins, it will put them down the pecking order, or it will affect them in trying to run the government on their own. And NTA persons, vice versa, they feel that sometimes, and it happened, I saw it with the COP, where individuals in the Congress of the People felt that they were better than UNC members. And that type of nonsense must stop. We must not have individuals with that type of pettiness, ego, arrogance, feel that they have some degree of supremacy to try to influence the direction of both political parties. If that happens, the PNM is going to win.
Mr. Griffith, also, when it comes to the leadership of the UNC, there are those who believe at this time that Mrs. Bisesa is unelectable. I don't disagree, but I want you to tell me what's your thoughts on that.
Well, the thing about it is that I think almost everybody says the same about Keith Rowley, inclusive of persons in the PNM, and that is what will happen. I mean, I am here in Carolina. I was just watching the in South Carolina. They had the primaries for the Republicans, and Donald Trump got 60% to 40% to Haley, and that was her home state. And then people will try to criticize Donald Trump and say, well, look at that. So many hundreds of thousands of Republicans voted against Trump. Yeah, that happens. That is what democracy is about. So there will be people within the UNC that are not pleased with the political leader. I don't think there's any political leader in any political party in the world that has 100% support. That is not my business. I'm not going to get into the details and the nitty-gritty of who the UNC should have as their political leader. As at this time, she is the political leader. That is who I would communicate with. I have been communicating with her. And if it is that the UNC decides to make their changes, then we will have to look to see who would be the new person if that is agreed upon. But in the meantime, I am going to be communicating and having dialogue with who has been appointed as the leader of the UNC. I am not here to point fingers, to target, to discredit, or to sing praises. My job is to respect the decision made by those people who will be forming an alliance with. And if it is that there are shortcomings, which again there would be, it is my right to voice a concern, because what I do not want is to ensure that we find some degree of cosmetic alliance, and then when we get into government, we then have concerns that it is too late. We need to be very transparent. That's what I intend to do. I think that was one of the problems we had with the People's Partnership. There was a shortage of transparency. In summary, I was just stating that it is important that there is a degree of transparency. Many people were not even aware of how that arrangement was made in 2010 pertaining to the seat allocation. People were not even aware of how the structure was. There was this thing called a Pfizer accord and all of that. What I'm speaking about is making sure there's a degree of transparency. We are not here to try to fool the supporters on both sides. We want to make sure that there is a degree of honesty. We are straightforward. We are letting the country be aware of certain things. And like, for example, I will give you, there are certain things that I will say that's not negotiable. I have spoken about it as the Minister of National Security, as the Commissioner of Police. If it is that I give the assurance to the country, we will fix this country as it pertains to crime. It happened under my watch as Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police. It was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years as Security Minister. It was the highest reduction in violent crime as Commissioner in 17 years. The country felt safe, and I could do much more, and it would happen. But certain things I am not going to be negotiating with as it pertains to, say, for example, government officials giving state contracts to questionable elements that they use the profits towards purchasing more weapons, hiring more gang members, putting hits on other gangs to get their contracts. You put an end to those things. So those are the things that I had some concerns with as a security minister, as a commissioner of police under the PNM government, where we got the information, and you would have heard the clash with myself and the present prime minister when, in a very foolish manner, he was trying to justify, well, these gang members are citizens too. They have a right to apply and they have a right. Nonsense. Somebody might be a terrorist. Because we have not arrested you as a terrorist, we're not going to give you a contract to paint the White House in Washington. So let's be realistic. When you give these gang members all of these tens of millions in state contracts, you give them a $5 million contract to build a $50,000 box train. They are not using it to help their community. Those are the type of things that I'm speaking about as it pertains to transparency. The NTA is not going to come into government and then we realize there's a minister appointed who is into the same type of governance that we have seen with several PNM ministers by playing with filthy animals, knowing that you will get fleas. I'm not going to sleep with the devil. And if it is that, so those are the type of things that I intend to make sure there's transparency in, that when we get into government, I am not negotiating with any government official, whether you're NTA, UNC, ABC, or XYZ, that I am going to turn a blind eye to you giving state contracts to criminal elements. So things along those lines is what I speak about as it pertains to transparency. It should not be seen as clashes or confrontation, but meaning showing to the country we are going to get the best government this country has ever seen in the history of Trinidad and Tobago.
So, Mr. Griffith, here's my question, right? Let's say that the NTA and the UNC is now running Trinidad and Tobago. And we speculate in here, right? And let's say you are the Minister of National Security, as an example. How are you going to control the Minister of Works if the Minister of Works decides the Minister of Works wants to deal with gangsters or gang leaders? How are you going to be able to control that?
That is exactly the point. That's why I speak about transparency before we get into government. We put a policy and make it known through the NTA and the UNC that we are not going to give state contracts to criminal elements. We make that known in advance, not this cosmetic thing that was done prior to 2010. You signed something, call it the Pfizer Accord or some declaration that was signed by Winston Dukran and the others. And people's like, what does that mean? What is the justification? Where are the principles? Where are the principles of good governance in that document that was signed? It was a cosmetic document. So that is what I speak about. Us having proper meetings, dialogue, meeting with the public, ensuring transparency, ensuring that we are going to tell the country we are accountable and we are going to confirm that we are not going to give state contracts to criminal elements. When you make that comment prior to and you make that, so in other words, the contract should not be between Gary and Kamala and EB, and no, the contract should be between those who want to get in office to those who are going to put us in office. That is what the contract I want. I want that contract between the citizens who want to put us in government and us promising you that when we get in government, we are going to hold to our word. Because you see, the thing about manifestos, that again, that is a cosmetic paper trail. We intend to put what is going to be seen as a roadmap towards good governance, something never seen before. We are going to explain how we are going to improve infrastructure, works, public utilities, national security, the economy, the environment, youth, culture, sports, the economy. And by doing that, we are going to show how we are going to get to that. Not by making promises on a glossy manifesto with lots of photographs of building big roads and bridges, no. And that is an example. So by both parties coming to an agreement, and there will be certain things probably that the UNC may have that they will say, listen, there are certain things that we see in the NTA that we feel you may want to go down a certain road. We do not want that to happen. When we clear these little hurdles, it will ensure that we wouldn't have the issues that took place in the People's Partnership from 2010 to 2015. And that is my point. We rushed in there, and then all of a sudden, the COP had certain principles that they were concerned with, vice versa, and then all hell broke loose. I am not going into a marriage of convenience. I am going to make sure this marriage remains for 5 years and to go on. And the only way it can be done is ensuring proper transparency, making sure that the decisions that are made between the political parties can be adhered to, that we have a common goal, a common objective, and we will now be able to achieve the mission.
So what I'm hearing you saying, right, Gary, is that if you have a minister is not holding up due to the policy was assigned previously before you get into government, that minister should go?
No, not at all. What it will show is that I will be able to say as the Minister of National Security, hey, there's a cabinet note here giving Mr. X a contract to build a $50,000 box train at a cost of $5 million. This person, based on the intelligence we have from the special branch, from the SSA, from the Defense Force Intelligence Unit, is a clear and present danger. He has terrorist links. He has been involved in criminal activity. He is not to get this state contract signed by cabinet. That is the point, because it gives the Minister of National Security that authority to come to cabinet and say, remember, this is one of the principles and the points that we had prior to getting in government. So it is no longer going to be a clash and an argument in cabinet about, well, people entitled to getting a contract, and then he's not in jail, so he has a right to, and these are our supporters. I'm not going to be in a debate in cabinet with that, because we have come to principles prior to getting in cabinet, prior to getting in government. So there's not going to be that type of clash. If it changes, it means we would have broken that oath. We would have broken our our contractual obligation with the public by giving them the promises of things that we will do and not do, and we have now shifted the goalpost. And then again, that government will pay the political price if they do so.
So here's something someone said, right? Mr. Griffith, sometimes them fellas put their family members or friends on. How do you address that? You know what I mean?
Well, again, my point being is that I am not here to pinpoint and be and try to be righteous to say that we're not given. I am speaking about if there's a blatant and present danger of gangs getting state contracts, and we know that they use the profits towards purchasing more drugs, purchasing more weapons, using the funds to pay off rogue elements in the law enforcement agencies to turn a blind eye, putting hits on other gang members to get their state contracts. We must stand firm and say we are not going to give these individuals contracts. And it's as straightforward as that. So this is not about, so again, I'm speaking about this as one example. There are so many things we can do prior to getting in government to ensure that we have built a proper foundation of mutual respect, understanding, and knowing what is required to ensure this country can prosper.
You know what I'm hearing, right? The Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, had made statements regard to giving gang leaders contracts, and I'm paraphrasing it. He says that his government is not going to have any of that, and that needs to stop, if it is happening. So is that the same kind of thing that I hear you were talking about, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a total contrast to Keith Rowley. If you recall, as Commissioner of Police, I said it. He decided to say, well, the people are citizens, they're entitled to apply. And then I said, that is nonsense, because if you do that, you are giving these gangs the opportunity to get capital to purchase more sophisticated weapons better than our law enforcement agencies. He said, well, they didn't commit a crime. And then we kept going on a tit for tat with this man trying to act as a spokesman to justify the eligibility for criminal elements to get and apply for state contracts. That is the type of prime minister we have. I want to ensure that whoever is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago understands that if it is that you're coming here to get the votes of that third constituency, we do not want that Keith Rowley type of leadership. We probably want the type of leadership and the comments made by the Jamaican Prime Minister or by your previous Minister of National Security, that being myself, or Commissioner of Police. I am not going to negotiate with terrorists. I am not going to negotiate with criminal elements. I am not going to turn a blind eye to give them state contracts in the hope that they will not commit crime.
I want to go to our next question from a person in the chat here. It says, Mr. Gary, we the normal citizens often hear ministers will make jail. It comes from both sides, and whichever party gets into power, we never see it anymore. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the fact of the matter is that as the Commissioner of Police, there was a minister that was actually arrested. Likewise, there was pressure that I would have received from the government to target and put a lot of investigations on political opponents in the hope that they would be arrested. That, again, there's a situation where the police service, they must be transparent, they must also be very independent, and they must not be in any way influenced by government officials. What I saw in this present government is very close to what is known as democratic dictatorship, where all that you have done in 9 years so far in government is to try to say that the other side, they thief, they corrupt, they're drunk, and that is all they do. So they have spent all of their time, and again, even me as Commissioner of Police, every single thing for them was to find out how close I am to arresting political opponents. That is madness. And anybody who is a PNM voter supporter, how could you want this? Your excitement to try to arrest political opponents must never be able to reach the point that you are going over the threshold, to the point that you give the Commissioner of Police $40 million, put it in the police account, and say you must use these funds to hire the best attorneys in the world, make them SRPs, in the hope that they can arrest political opponents so that we can win our next election. That is madness. So as the Minister of National Security, if I am, or Prime Minister as the Chair of the National Security Council, if I would be one day, I have no intention to influence, pressure, or harass police officers in the hope that they can be influenced politically to arrest political opponents. Our job is to find systems such as what I did when I drafted the civil asset forfeiture, in that one of the ways to deal with white-collar crime is to be able to If it is that this individual has 10 houses, he has tens of millions of dollars in an account, but we realize he's not working. We realize now that he's siphoning funds, he's involved in white collar crime. You can't account for how you got the funds, we can seize it. Those are the things that we can do. Our job is to put legislation and policies and provide the assets, the resources, the tools, the units, the technology for our law enforcement agencies to properly investigate all persons, regardless of the position that they hold and regardless of whether you're in government or opposition. That is how I intend to operate.
Now, Mr. Griffith, do you believe the UNC can win a general election without the NTA?
Well, I don't. There are people saying that I shouldn't comment on this. All I will state is that the UNC previously was known as the ULF. Let's go back to history. The ULF/the UNC attempted to go on their own in 1976. They were defeated comprehensively. They did it in 1981 when the ONR formed their own party, and they lost comprehensively. They then went in 1991 and they were defeated. They then, again, in 1995, on their own, they did not get the majority of seats. They had to form the accommodation with A&R Robinson. 2001, they attempted it, they were defeated. 2002, they attempted it, they were defeated. 2007, they attempted it, they were defeated. 2015, they attempted it, they were defeated. 2020, they attempted it, they were defeated. So in other words, there have been 8 or 9 instances in the last 50 years of the UNC/the ULF attempting to go on their own. They have lost every single time, bar once, and that lasted a few months. Is it that the UNC is strong enough that, as similar to the Wzye Pandey UNC in 2000 when they won on their own, and that lasted a few months? That is not for me to decide. But if anybody just do the maths, they will understand. And this is nothing against the UNC, because when you actually look at the voting turnout of the UNC, at times it could be even more. But how our constituencies are shaped, it allows in such a way that the UNC may actually have more support than the PNM, but they cannot win because of the corridor where there's not that amount of UNC support from Diego Martin goes straight to Arima, especially when you're looking for those marginal seats such as St. Joseph, Lupino Bonaire, La Joqueta, Talparo, Davide Omera, Arima, and then we also look at the San Fernando West, the Moruga, and the Sangre Grande. Those seats on the marginals have always been won the majority by the PNM. So, as I am not here to point fingers and to threaten the UNC or anything like that. I am just humbly giving the data that the UNC have never won on their own, other than one occasion, and that lasted a few months. And especially anytime there are third parties, the UNC could have never won on their own, which would have been in 1981, 1991, and 2007. And in fact, anytime there's a third party that goes with their own candidates, it ensures that the PNM wins by a wider margin. I don't think that the conversation is even worth being discussed, because if it is something worked in the local government election and you see it fit to change it, you don't change a winning team. So my take on it is that I still don't, if it is that the UNC decides to go on their own, that is their right. I am not here to threaten them, to bully them. I am just here to give the data of the political history. And if at any time any political parties, they go on their own against the PNM, it spells success for the PNM.
Gary, do you believe that Michaela Pandey with the Patriotic Front can have a significant impact in the 2025 election? General election?
Well, honestly, I don't know. I'm not here to discredit or disrespect any political party. Every political party has a right to be a political party. The Congress of the People, there will be all sort of negative comments about the Congress of the People, but they are still a political party. They may have 10 members or 1,000 or 10,000. That is irrelevant. They're a political party and they must be respected. They should be. As it pertains to this party, I think they've been in existence for about 2 or 3 years. One of the ways to show your strength is to be in an election. They have not been in an election, and that means that you now become an activist group. So you can't be saying that you're a political party, but you're not taking part in politics. That is the time when it is that you will see your wit, you will see your strength, and then you will step up. So it is difficult to judge and measure the strength of our political party if they've never gone into the political ring. And so I think that is what is important. My personal belief is that they will not have an impact as it pertains to the corridor, which will be the marginal seats, which involves the Congress of the People /NAR/ONR/NTA type voters in the corridor. Their support base may primarily be in the same UNC areas in southern and central areas. So what they may have more support in would be of the many seats that the UNC presently possess, but the UNC will usually won those seats by several thousand votes. So going into there and going into that battleground, it may just slightly diminish the success of the UNC in those UNC seats that they have won. But as it pertains to the marginal seats, which will be in the corridor, I have never seen anyone in that party stepping up to say, well, I am a person in the corridor. So like, for example, the National Transformation Alliance, the corridor, you would see that is where I was comfortable that I could have walked throughout in the local government election, be it Laventille, in the hills of Laventille, Sealots, Beetham, Lopino, Bonnier, or the hills in Arima, Scorpion and Caranage, Paramin and Maraval, where even the political leaders of the PNM have never walked. Because the NTA, we have that strength, we have that respect, we have that substance, not just Gary Griffith. There are several persons in the NTA who are very well respected in that corridor. And I think corridor is a critical element. So the main thing about third party is how much support you have in the corridor, that area from Diego Martin to Arima, inclusive of Point Fortin, San Fernando West, Sangre Grande, and Moruga. So that is what is important. That party that is there, as I said, they've spent 3 years. You can't show your political vote unless you get into the political ring. And even so, you do not know I do not know one person who is a member of that party other than the person who heads that party. So if you want to really test the waters, you need to get in the political ring to see your political strength.
Now, here's a question, right? And I'm changing this question a little bit. There are some people who are saying that Michaela Pandey doesn't want to join up with the UNC. What about if she reached out to you, Gary, as the political leader of the NDA to join up with the NTA?
Well, the thing about, remember again, I'm going back to the National Transformation Alliance. That is our surname. That is the name here. That is the last name in the name of the party. We are available, willing to meet with all political parties if it is that we have the same principles towards proper governance and the proper principles of good management, good leadership, measurement of performance, and accountability. So we are not here to cut and paste or to pinpoint and target us having some dialogue with A and not B. People know our address, they know where we are. The same way that the UNC was very professional, mature to communicate with us because they understood the importance of working with us in the local government election to ensure the PNM would have been defeated by over 60,000 votes, which sets the template for success in the general election. I have no issue to meet with other parties, and I'm not even going to call them smaller parties, but whether it is that it is HOPE, the Congress of the People, the MSJ, the unions, the NGOs, activist groups. The concept that I believe in is trying to ensure that everyone has some degree of representation in government as much as possible. You do that, you're going to win not just a government, but win the hearts of a nation. And that is what I intend to do. So we are not here to cut and paste, to blacklist anybody. But again, those individuals who may want to communicate with us, have dialogue with us, they must have the principles towards proper governance. That is what we intend to have. That is something that is non-negotiable. So whether it is the UNC, the ABC, the XYZ, we will open the door and we will communicate. And if we come to one ground of ensuring proper governance on the principles that we stand for, we believe in, well, then we will continue to have open dialogue. And again, as I always say, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The more persons come on board, the more we're able to get proper representation, the more checks and balances can take place. Because that's what happens right now with the PNM. When one man speaks, not a dog will bark. When it is you have several political leaders all working together, representing different bodies, they can now stand firm and say, Prime Minister, Minister, whoever, I think we are going in the wrong direction. That is the value of having some degree of accommodation of alliance and some type of coalition government.
Mr. Griffith, I heard you before talking about the corridor and the importance of the corridor. And that brought something to mind, that Mr. Warner was very helpful and effective in bringing the corridor to that coalition in 2010. Do you think that at this particular time, Mr. Warner should be focused on when it comes to trying to show up that corridor for your new initiative?
Well, let me tell you something. When there's this stigma that with Jack Warner, always he's blacklisted and demonized by certain persons, and that is their right. It's your right to hate if you want to or to love if you want to. I worked with Mr. Warner in Filipino La Florida for the candidate there, of course the NTA candidate. PNM won that seat by I think 1,300 votes in 2020. They were able to hold on to it by 180 votes. We took almost 1,000 votes in that area. And we did that through the other 31 seats practically, where PNM would have won by 1,000, they ended up winning by a couple hundred. That is how far we cut into the corridor and the inroads we made in the PNM. The reason I'm bringing that is that there was a certain man by the name of Jack Warner that worked with me in that area in Lupino. And I walked in Lupino with him for a whole day, for about several hours. And he met about 410 persons, and 410 persons shook that man and praised him. It was unbelievable what I saw. So when it is you still want to hate Jack Warner, you're trying to say, look, Gary, how dare you praise Jack Warner? Don't hate the player. Don't hate the player. Hate the game. The fact of the matter is, this man, when he walked into Lupino, all the hills, all you kept hearing is, since you left, and they buffed him. They said, since you left as our Minister of Works and Transport, we can't get lights, we can't get water. Look at the state of the roads. When you were here, everything was happening. That says a lot about the individual Jack Warner. This is the same Jack Warner when he had the ILP. I think he acquired 3,500 odd votes in Lupino, Borneo. The UNC got about 3,500. The PNM got 9,000. So you're speaking about 35 plus 35 from 9,000. That's a very marginal seat. And then showing what I just mentioned, with us cutting from 1,300 to 180 votes in that one area alone, in that constituency, it shows that we have now reached that point of being prepared to win that seat. If it is that we utilize the support base that Jack Warner had with the ILP. So again, it goes back to my point is, I am not here to pinpoint and to do polygraph testing to see everybody who is perfect and he who has not sinned. If persons are willing to come forward and to support us, and they really have the goodness of Trinidad and Tobago at heart, I am willing to communicate with them.
So, Mr. Griffith, let's say, right, we speculating here. Let's say, for instance, the NTA decide that they're going to go it alone, right? And we know for a fact that the two seats in Tobago East and Tobago West, right, going to have an impact on the election. And let's just say, for example, the NTA was to happen to win 2 seats, right? Therefore, we have, if I'm speculating here now, if the PDP was to win 1 seat in Tobago and the TPP was to win 1 seat, so we have 4 seats as wild cards, right? Do you have a general idea, sense of what the NTA will do?
No, not at all. I mean, again, you're speculating. I can't make a decision unless, because remember, the NTA would have an executive. This is not the PNM when one man makes a decision, everybody must say, oh God, but Prime Minister, he was the best commissioner of police. Okay, I don't like him. Okay, Prime Minister, we'll listen to him, we'll say nothing and bad talk him. This is not the PNM. That's how the PNM operates. The PNM operates where one man makes a decision and the whole country could go to hell, the whole country could drown in blood because he doesn't like Gary Griffith. The NTA is not like that. So it is difficult for me to give any comment like that unless, because that's what I have always done. Every decision that I make, you speak to the persons on the ground, you speak to your executive, you speak to the rank and file. So I can't make a statement that this is not Keith Rowley and this is not the PNM when one man makes a decision, everybody back. If Keith Rowley right now says, you know, I'm a mistake, I love Gary Griffith, everybody in the PNM will start to love Gary Griffith. That is what you call, that's not people, you know, that's sheeple. And I have no intention for the NTA supporters to go down that road that Gary Griffith makes a decision and everybody must blindly support and listen to. I want to hear your decision. I want to hear your views. So it is difficult for me to give a comment based on speculation without actually speaking to an executive. What I can say, however, is, as I said, the reason why you form a political party is to get in government. If it is that we have some bargaining chips on the table, I will think it is appropriate that we should want to be part of that bargaining chip and to be part of government if we have the capability to do so by winning a few seats.
I want to shift it a little bit, right? Let's say Gary, the coalition with the NT and the UNC wins the election. Are you guys gonna continue with the way how at the end of the day, the prime minister is fully responsible for the appointment of the COP. I'm saying fully responsible because they can reject, anybody from the list until they decide that they get the candidate that they will like. Would you guys change that?
Well, I think it's really inappropriate, the present system. Again, I'm just speaking of Gary Griffith here. Being a previous Minister of National Security, being a previous Commissioner of Police, it really is ridiculous. I mean, it goes right back to even 2018. When I topped that merit list, I got 82.5%. I got more percent than anybody else who applied for Commissioner of Police. This was done by qualified international experts by KPMG, when the process in the Constitution was to bring in external experts. And then because the then Police Service Commission was appointed by previously the UNC, they decided to put me down to number 4 because they just didn't like my head. And that is mad. There's only in a banana republic you could do that. So I got more points than Stephen Williams and Harold Phillip and all of them, and they still put me forward because they find so. And they were appointed by the UNC. What is the same UNC that I've seen when I was appointed, but somehow they all put their hands in and Ramashe when Ula Christopher name went up and said, yes, all hail Ula Christopher. But that's another story. So it shows that, and then after, when I then become Commissioner of Police, and then when I top the merit list again, getting 94%, and a Prime Minister handpicks a president who handpicks a Police Service Commission, they will then come and say, well, no, we now change it and we're going to put Ula Christopher ahead of you. That is the type of political madness that takes place. So we are not getting the best person to be appointed as Commissioner of Police anymore. It is all a political charade where a Prime Minister could whisper to a president who he handpicks, and the president will then handpick persons in the Police Service Commission. We have a Maxine Atong and Maxine King, a financial accountant and a speaking consultant. No qualification, training, knowledge, or experience whatsoever in national security. But they decided to take Ula Christopher, who got 52% by experts and got 30% less than other people. And these jokers in this Police Service Commission put her first and impose her on us. Yet we are attacking Ula Christopher. So it shows the present system is badly flawed. It allows for political manipulation. I could be the Prime Minister and a man placed 7th, but I know he's a UNC or NTA till he's dead, and he will come and arrest all the PNM people if he wants. I can then come into Parliament and bypass 6 persons who are better than him because I want that individual. That can't be right. It can't be right if you are Prime Minister and you can handpick a president who will then handpick people in the Police Service Commission and pick a lady who actually got 3 out of 15 in a role fit, got 24 out of 50 in an interview, and got 3 out of 15 in a mock media conference. And you put her first? That Police Service Commission should be fired. But you know what? They'll probably get a raise by the president because the president was appointed by the Prime Minister. That is why our country is failing, not just in national security, but everything. We have state board appointments, which is something I also have a concern about. We have state board appointments for decades. I remember a man was the head of Petrotrin, and the man wouldn't even know how to if to put diesel or regular gas in his car. He was so clueless as it pertains to the energy sector. But because he was a friend of a senior minister, they gave him this appointment in Petrotrin. That is madness. Most of the appointments in state boards are based not on the qualification of the individual, but the party card that the person holds. That should change. This has cost our country billions of billions annually in corruption and mismanagement and lack of productivity because of all these state board appointments being an avenue to fixing for our political friends. And they have no qualification or training or experience in that state board. There must be minimum qualification. I dare to even recommend, it is something that can't be done unless we are in government, but I would like to see a 10% of all state board appointments be given to the opposition to ensure that there are checks and balances in the state board to prevent the misappropriation, the corruption, and the incompetence that takes place in these state boards. And that is the type of governance you're going to see if it is we get that opportunity. It is going to be what you call proper governance, making sure that we can find the best avenues, the best people. I don't even care if you're a PNM. If I am in government, I want to find the best persons available to put in the best positions, inclusive of the Commissioner of Police.
Mr. Griffith, didn't the Prime Minister say that Mrs. Ula Christopher was one of the few to pass the lie detector test? Didn't he say that?
Well, I don't know. We could actually say that because that report wouldn't be there. And who is it to say that? Who it is that did the lie detector test? The SSA, who is an avenue and an arm of the PNM. So I mean, really and truly, the audacity of trying to put lie detector test. I did my lie detector test by a highly qualified expert who handles Miami PD, and I passed with flying colors. I challenged Keith Rowley to do a lie detector test on certain things. I challenged Gerald Hines, and I will bring the questions because they want to use the lie detector test as an avenue for Earl Christopher. Let us go by an impartial body, and I will ask Keith Rowley, and the question should be asked: did you harass a commissioner of police to get a firearm dealer's license for a friend in Tobago to sell hundreds of more firearms and to build a range? Did you, Fitzgerald Hines, harass a commissioner to get 13 firearms for people closely affiliated with you? Did you all harass a commissioner to give him $40 million to hire foreigners and to target political opponents to have them arrested? So when Keith Rowley should be the last person to speak about polygraph testing, because if you want to talk about polygraph testing, I want to landate him as well with polygraph testing.
So one thing we cleared up, Gary, is that even though the NTA is putting up 41 in all 41 constituencies, that doesn't mean to say that the union or coalition or arrangement between the UNC and the NTA is dead.
No, definitely not. Because as I said, the UNC just recently, they put a release stating that they are looking to have 41 candidates for all constituencies. So this is not a poker game that we are playing where we are calling a bluff of each other. We are basically moving forward as political parties because you never know what could happen. Suppose all the talks collapse. We can't just sit back in the hope and expectation that one party would have acquired 15 seats, the other will get acquired 26 or vice versa. The objective of us as political parties is to make sure we have, because remember, the NTA and the UNC, we have representation across the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. So this is not a UNC thing for Central and South and an NTA and the corridor belongs to the NTA. No, there would be support based throughout. You would have seen it in the Congress of the People, those 147,000 votes that was spread throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. So along that line, it is important that we put out over 41 candidates. If and when we come to that deliberation, we can then say, well, look, I have Mr. X, you have Ms. Y. But when we look at his qualification and his support in that area, he may be the best candidate. So at least it will give options. So this is not in any way for anyone to be concerned that both political parties have gone our separate ways. What we are doing is our political homework prior to making that final decision.
A question for the chat. Mr. Gary, are you willing to put up NTA members in Tobago come 2025?
Well, the NTA, Tobago is part of the 41 seats, so that is definitely on the cards. I have to be very strategic as well. I mean, everything plays its part here. We know that usually Tobago is a two-horse race. Would the NTA going into Tobago affect other parties in Tobago from defeating the PNM? So that is something, but that is also open. If you notice, we did say 41 seats, we didn't say 39. So we have actually opened that opportunity for persons to be interested to apply to be possible candidates for the NTA in those two Tobago seats as well.
And lastly, before
Mr.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Mr. Griffith, crime is of major importance to the people of Trinidad and Tobago at this time. And we have been getting some input from some local law enforcement in the United States as to even offering themselves free of charge to try to help Trinidad and Tobago. Would you, in your capacity as a minister, or let's say maybe national security minister, be interested in dealing with some U.S. crime fighters that of Trinidad background who are willing to help out?
No, definitely. That is what we were doing. In fact, we actually brought in an individual who was highly qualified from the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. They assisted me as the commissioner of police. They brought him here. But because of pettiness by senior officers, they tried everything and caused him to leave. The same thing happened with Dwayne Gibbs and Wzye. They couldn't do it with me because I will tell them where to get off. And so there was always that pushback of persons outside of Trinidad and Tobago coming in here, because remember, at times they will have the degree of expertise looking at the new systems involved. And again, as Commissioner of Police, I did that. Lo and behold, it was the first time that we signed a bilateral agreement between Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the NYPD. We had the NYPD coming into Trinidad and Tobago, training our police officers in customer service training, in public relations, in assisting us on setting up the gender-based violence unit that has been virtually shut down, along with social media monitoring unit that has been virtually shut down. That social media monitoring unit, the NYPD commissioner showed me the importance of monitoring social media to prevent a crime from taking place or to be able to find information to solve a crime. All of the technology that they provided us with, looking at what I saw in one police plaza in New York, that they used to assist in natural and man-made disasters after 9/11, dealing with major events such as seeing the ball drop. We set up all of those things through the National Operations Center. All of these things, the PNM have shut down. The National Operations Center, the Commissioner's Command Center, the Operational Command Center, body cameras, the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Operational, the Rapid Response Unit, the Emergency Response Patrol, the Social Media Monitoring Unit, the Covert Operative, the Special Operation Response Team. Man, I could go on for the next half an hour of the amount of units, technologies, systems, policies that worked, that played an instrumental part for crime to go down as the number 4 concern in this country, behind health, education, and the economy, going back up to number 1 after I left. Things that were put in place that when the police service was ranked, but they had 14% public support when I came in. When I left, it was 59%. A year after I left, it went back down to 8%. Keith Rowley has to be thankful for all this. That in my last year, there were 342 murders, the lowest number of murders in any given year in 17 years. 1 year later, it went up to over 600 from 342. Keith Rowley is to thank for all of this. And again, so for the people who are PNM till they're dead, if you feel that by voting for a man like this, that can increase the possibility of your wife being raped, your daughter being kidnapped, your son being killed, well, then you go and stain your finger there, brother man. But I can tell you, the one thing I intend to do is to make Trinidad and Tobago safer again and to provide a proper government. And again, if it requires international expertise, which is what I did, and it was all shut down and removed, I would reignite it, because I have nothing about my pride being so much that I will not be able to accept international assistance, which is what I did as Commissioner of Police, and it assisted greatly in making Trinidad and Tobago a safer place.
So Gary, I have one more question for you. We're gonna take a quick 30-second break and we'll be right back. Can you hold for us for 30 seconds?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Folks, we have with us the political leader of the NTA, Mr. Gary Griffith, here on Sunday Talk. Let's Talk Politics on Wzye 95.9 FM. We're going to go for a quick break, and I'm playing this one from off of the radio here. Let me see if I get this one. Hold on. Just a minute here.
You are listening to Wzye 95.9 FM, the most influential name in Caribbean radio in New Jersey for talk, news, sports, and information from the Caribbean.
Okay, there you have it. So we are back with you. It's Sunday Talk, Let's Talk Politics on Wzye 95.9 FM. The yours truly, Professor Wall Street, and Uncle Tommy, coming to you every Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. TNT time and 12 to 3 p.m. USA time. So, Mr. Griffith, I am sure you saw the 16-point recommendation with respect to crime from Dr. Selwyn Kosher. What is your take on that?
Well, listen, it's horses for courses. Every single citizen in Trinidad and Tobago has a crime plan. And this is where it is. So do you think that and this is not to knock the professor's point plan, but do you think that yourself will come up with a 15-point plan to deal with energy, or your co-host will come up with a 10-point plan to deal with sport? Anybody could do that. My concept of trying to deal with the anti-crime talks would be to bring qualified specialists with that have the capability, understanding, research, technology, training, experience, and qualification in national security. Because as I said, every single citizen in Trinidad and Tobago could come up with a 10, 15, 20-point crime plan. The point crime plans has really been comical. You'll never hear any other developed country in the world come up with a 10-point, 15-point crime plan. It is policies, it is principles that I use. National security, and we had the highest reduction in violent crime, serious crime, in 31 years. There was no crime plan. There's no crime plan. What you do is you have principles. You put certain principles and policies and units and strategies. When it is you bring up these points, I could ask each person, what is your cost-benefit analysis? What was your research done? What is your benefit to ascertain that this is a better avenue to reduce crime than something else? Because I could go to 10 different persons, and each one of the 10 of them will have 10 different 10-point crime plans. That is not how you reduce crime in a country, by having persons who, because you are affected by crime, it means that you are going to find the solutions to reduce crime. Of course, we would love to hear the concerns by persons, but my concept is horses for courses. You have to bring the people who are qualified and trained, because you're not going to have Professor Kujo come up with a 10-point energy plan or a 10-point health plan. Why it is you come with a 15-point crime plan? Because crime affects you. Well, so does energy, so does health, so does education. Doesn't mean that every citizen is going to come up with his 15-point crime plan. So my concept of it is we will always embrace and listen to the views of everyone, but I spend more time. So when it is at the NTA, we have our anti-crime talks. We are going to bring highly qualified experts who understand the systems and the scientific approach to national security. That is what I did as national security advisor, as the commissioner of police and the security minister, getting the best minds available in the field of national security, and you saw the transformation. Having civilians come up with their 10 and 15-point crime plan, it really is could be as effective as any citizen coming up with a 10-point crime plan for sport, education, and health to the economy.
So Mr. Griffith, I just heard you say something there. Does that mean to say that the NTA is now going to have its own crime talks?
Well, yeah, the anti-crime talks that the UNC have, and we were not after I spoke the first time, we have not been asked to be involved. And they have their specific angle. Their angle is to invite persons to complain about crime and who have a concern about crime. And that could be important, having people express their views. Our angle is different. We are solution oriented. So what you're going to get is some of the best minds available in national security coming up with solutions. I think what the country wants to hear is solutions, not hear the complaints about how bad crime is. That is not going to help. Likewise, having civilians come up with their 10 and 15-point crime plan because they are not qualified. It is almost identical to a police service commission having persons interview the persons for position of commissioner of police, but you have no training or qualification in national security. That is what you call total madness, if not stupidity. So what we intend to do is to find the top qualified experts in national security with a track record and have them come up to say, these are the solutions that can assist in making Trinidad and Tobago safer. And we'll be doing the same thing in the roadmap you'll be seeing as it pertains to health, education, the economy, local government, sport, youth development. That is what we need. We need to make sure we have the experts. And I do not care if you're a PNM or UNC. I just need to get the best minds available. When that comes together, then we could set the proper roadmap towards proper governance.
So two things I heard, Mr. Griffith, is that the NTA is no longer part of the crime talks that the UNC is putting on. And that, secondly, the NTA is going to have their own crime talks. When is that going to start?
In a few weeks, just about a few weeks, sometime in about the middle of March. But again, there should be no concern to persons. If the UNC wants to have their own crime talks, anti-crime talks, that is fine. We will have our own, but it should not be seen as any factor pertaining to any major concern. The UNC will have their political meetings, we would have ours. It would be hoped, I would have expected that, and I would hope that such systems, if it is that there's a degree of unification, it gives a greater perception, of the supporters on both sides to say, yeah, something is working out. When it is you have your talks and we have our talks, it can lift a red flag to have persons voice their concern that something is wrong. It's certainly not wrong on my side. There's no concern on my side. I know what is required to win. I know what is required to get in the government. It is for all political leaders across the board to understand same.
So if the NTA is invited back to the UNC crime talks, are you guys going back?
Well, we don't know. That is all speculation because we have not been included. We have not been invited. it means that we need to have our own and move forward. You only will need to ask the UNC why it is that we have not been invited, why we have no longer been included. We are not here to beg. We have stamped our authority on the map of Trinidad and Tobago politics based on how we operated in the local government election by cutting major inroads into the 31 safest PNM seats in local government. So we are not here for handouts. If it is that persons respect and understand and appreciate the worth of the NTA, our door is always open.
Mr. Griffith, I want to say, unless Tommy have any other question, Mr. Griffith, it's always a pleasure that you gave us the time whenever we call you to come on here on WZYE 95.9 FM. We do appreciate. And Mr. Griffith, let me say this, there is a policy that the NTA has, and we played here on WZYE 95.9 FM. That policy with respect to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago being able to go to a consulate or a commission or a high commission in outside of Trinidad and Tobago and to be able to vote. Let me just say me personally think that is an excellent initiative by the NTA. And I know many citizens, dual citizens, who live outside of Trinidad and Tobago will appreciate it, something like that. And we know it.
Most of us.
Well, honestly, I can't understand why anyone will not want it to happen. I think it is a slap in the face and total disrespect to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that we are trying to tell you back home, hey, it's not really one of us, For you to come and vote here, you need to come 6 months before and stamp your authority. Other than that, you're not a real Trini. In local parlance, the EBC and any government who have done this, and for the last few decades, they've fastened out a place. Every single person who has a Trinidad and Tobago passport, you are as much a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago as those who live in Trinidad and Tobago. We have to get out of this banana republic perception that I have to live here to be seen that I have more rights as a citizen than you. It happens all over the United States, all over the world. You do not need to be in the United States to vote. And here it is no different. The system that I intend to incorporate, and again, the things that I will speak about, that requires agreement, because the two major political parties, when they have been in government, they have never changed it. Sometimes there may be a perception that the number of voters in New York City may be pro-PNM, the number of voters that will be in Toronto or London may be pro-UNC. I don't care. The fact is there are 400,000 persons with Trinidad and Tobago passports that should not have to be hustling to get on a plane with 200 seats by four flights the weekend before the Monday of an election to be eligible to vote. All you have to do is to ensure that the person has an address on their ID card to link them to that constituency, and you are allowed to vote when it is in our high commissions in Brazil, Venezuela, Panama, Costa Rica, Miami, New York City, Washington, Toronto, London, Geneva, China. We have the high commissions, and the persons just go there and vote. So it is something I intend to push heavily. It certainly won't take place for the 2025 general election, but when we're in government, I will now be able to have that opportunity to have it done for 2030 general election.
Since we're on that, right, one other thing, and this is us here in the diaspora too, right? Why it is that, for example, in this country, if you have dual citizenship, you could be a senator. Why it is in Trinidad and Tobago, if you have dual citizenship, you cannot be an MP or run for any general election in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah, it was that has been a law that's been there for decades. The UNC almost lost being in government in 2000 because of Gypsy and Shaitan having the same situation, and both of them had to hurriedly relinquish their citizenship from the United States because of that. It is a very outdated law, and again, it is something that also needs to be considered. Because you have dual citizenship, it does not mean that you are any less of a citizen and be eligible to represent your country in parliament. That is my personal view. But as I said, if it is you go into a coalition government, there will be certain recommendations that we will definitely make. And there will be some that would be approved based on it being unanimous. There will be some that we'll have to debate, and there will be some that will probably be rejected. But that is democracy.
Mr. Griffith, again, thank you so very kindly, man. You always give us some time, man. We appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Thank you so very much.
Well, again, you see that, but I always say that if it is that you put yourself in public office, you need to be accessible. I really find it is amazing that people want to be in public office. They want to hold public office. They want the perks. but they're afraid to be accessible and they're afraid to be scrutinized by the media. You can't play master and afraid power. If it is you want to be in public office, you want to serve people, you need to make yourself accessible. And I will continue to do so. I wish you all the best. I'm here in North Carolina. It's a lovely weather here, by the way. I'll be going back home shortly.
It's a nice place, you know. North Carolina is a nice place, you know.
It is. I really do like it up here. Lovely weather, good people. But yeah, time to get back home. They want to do some work.
All right.
Enjoy your time in the US.
Thank you so much, man.
Take care.
All right.